In the last lesson, you learned that few-shot technique doesn't work well for tasks involving mathematics, logic, and reasoning. Few shots, in addition with chain of thought approach, addresses this limitation. In this lesson, you will learn how to apply chain of thought prompting technique. You will also learn about zero-shot chain of thought prompting technique. To make things clear, I'll demonstrate this technique with the Hugging Face Google Flan T5 XXL model. The chain of thought approach was shared by a group of Google researchers in a paper titled Chain of Thought Prompting LHS Reasoning in Large Language Models. This paper is available on the arXiv website. The authors of this paper demonstrated the effectiveness of the chain of thought prompting technique for complex mathematical and reasoning problems. In this paper, there's a lot of good information on how the model performance improved with the use of this technique. This graph in particular shows how the Google PaLM 540 billion parameter model's performance improved from 18% to 57% in solving word math problems. There is a lot of other good information available in this paper. So if you're interested in diving deep into chain of thought approach, I suggest reading this document. Keep in mind that you don't need to go through this document in order to use the technique. I'll show you step by step how to use chain of thoughts in this lesson and by way of a hands-on exercise in the next lesson. You may also read the summarized version of this paper in the course guide. Chain of thought refers to a prompting approach in which a series of intermediate reasoning steps significantly improves the ability of LLMs to perform complex reasoning tasks. Let me explain it to you with an illustration. A common way we humans approach a problem is to break a complex task into smaller subtasks and then act on the simplified task. In fact, it is easier for us to understand a task when it is broken into steps. Chain of thought involves the same approach, wherein we break the answer in the examples into steps that explain how we arrived at the answer. So instead of just saying the answer, we provide descriptive steps that show how we arrived at the answer. The model learns the pattern from the example and applies the pattern defined by way of these steps to answer the question. Let me show you a real example. I've taken this example from the Chain of Thought research paper. This is a one-shot prompt. Here, this is the problem to be solved, and the answer in the example that we are providing to the model gives the final answer here, which is 11. It does not describe how to get to the answer in a step-by-step manner. The response to this prompt from most models will lead to incorrect answer. Keep in mind that models are becoming smarter day by day. So some models like GPT-4 may be able to solve it with zero shots. When the chain of thought approach is applied to this prompt, it will look like this. So here, instead of just saying the answer, author of the prompt is providing steps taken to reach the final answer of 11. Now, when the model is asked to solve a new problem, it thinks about the solution in terms of the steps. This leads to more accurate responses from the model. I mentioned earlier that modern models are sometimes trained on reasoning problems. As a result, they may work without a need for examples for math and reasoning tasks. These are zero-shot models, and sometimes you can just add the instruction, let's think step by step to get the desired response. This is called zero-shot chain of thought. It goes without saying that this technique works for larger models, but may fail to yield good results with smaller ones. With some models, I have seen that even few shots require the model to be instructed to think step by step. Sometimes you may need to adjust or extend this phrase to make this technique work. Google T5 XXL model works well with chain of thought prompting. Let's try it out on Hugging Face. As an example, I'll use the example prompts in the Chain of Thought research paper. I'm on the Hugging Face portal. We're going to use the inference widget. Let me just maximize this. I'm going to copy and paste just a question from the research paper, compute, and it says the answer is 3, which obviously is not good. So let me convert this prompt into a one-shot prompt. So here I've added one example. Let's add the output indicator and hit compute. And the answer is 3, which is incorrect. The answer is actually 9. So now we will convert this prompt into a chain of thought prompt. And to do that, I'm going to switch the answer to a more detailed step-by-step explanation of the answer. And let's run it. And this time the answer is 7, which is still incorrect. So we can use think step by step. And let's see if this fixes the problem. The answer is still 7. Can you think of how we can fix it further? And validate each step. Let's see what happens now. And this time we got the right answer, which is 9. Now I would suggest try out this example with other models of your choice. Before I end this lesson, I would like to highlight 2 points from the results section of the research paper. Authors of the paper tested this approach with multiple models, and they observed that best results for the technique were obtained with models that had over 100 billion parameters. Second thing they observed was that for simple problems such as those involving a single step, the performance of the model either degraded or there was very little gain. You can read about these and other additional observations in the results section of the paper. In this lesson, you learned the chain of thought prompting technique. This technique suggests elaborating the answers in the shorts to include steps on how the answer was evaluated instead of just giving the answer. This approach significantly improves the performance of the model. Zero-shot chain of thought suggests guiding the model by adding the phrase think step by step or some variation of it in the instructions. At times, you may need to mix the few-shot chain of thought with zero-shot chain of thought technique. In the next lesson, you will apply the chain of thought approach to fix issues observed with multiple types of logical and reasoning tasks.